Hello, I'm Betsy Reeder, and I'm the Regional Vice President for New Jersey for the Leaders Edge Leaders by Design. And I'm sorry that you missed the in-person session for Accelerating Success Strategies for Career Growth. And this webcast has been created with the content of the session and is intended to get you caught up on what you missed. So as you know, this is the fourth large group session of the KPMG Executive Leadership Institute for Women. Our first session was focused on building self-awareness, where you participated in the DISC Leadership Assessment, which had the objective really of enhancing your understanding of your style and how to best leverage your style, or in some circumstances, adapt your style to communicate most effectively with others. Session 2, you'll recall, was all about leading change, learning to navigate through what is often a complex political environment, and expanding the array of influencing tactics you can use to gain buy-in for the changes that you are trying to lead. In Session 3, the focus was on personal resiliency. You had the opportunity to assess your level of resiliency, and create an action plan to develop that even further. So now we get to Session 4, which is all about you and your career. So it really is an opportunity to take a step back and look at your strengths, your career goals, and how you want to manage that going forward. And this session is particularly important for a few reasons. First, as you've progressed in your career, the decisions about where you want to go from here become a lot more complex. You have a much broader array of skills than you did earlier in your career. Skills like leadership, communication, technical expertise, business acumen, to name just a few. Your experiences are also broader, providing you with capabilities and strengths to bring to a much broader range of circumstances. Additionally, at this stage in your career, you may also be more interested in pursuing opportunities that align with your personal values, what you want from your life outside of work, and what you're passionate about. Additionally, early in our careers, opportunities most frequently come to us. Our careers were really managed by people above us. Now, given the variety and complexity of possibilities, it's important for you to take control of that process. In essence, you really are the CEO of your career. So throughout this session, we'll do a series of activities. The first will help you better understand the breadth and depth of your key strengths and skills. You'll also be able to clarify your career goals and define which skills, experiences, and resources are needed for you to grow in the direction that you want to. You'll also have the opportunity to assess your personal brand and develop a strategy to gain visibility and support for those goals. For this session, please have the handouts that were sent to you available. There's two handouts. Handout 1, which is about getting in touch with your skills, interests, and motivated abilities, and then handout 2, which is an action plan for career growth. So essentially, this will be a working session, and I'm going to give you time throughout to think through key questions. Just a reminder of your pre-work. First of all, reading Chapter 8 of the ebook that was sent to you, Breaking into the Boys Club, written by Molly Shepard, our CEO. Secondly, an article on how women rise, how to break the 12 habits that hold you back from your next raise or your next promotion. And then thirdly, an article on how to feel authentic while building your personal brand. I hope you did take the time to read all of those, and also keep them on hand because they can be great references throughout your career. So let's start by talking about career stories. And one of our strong beliefs is that a career is a journey, not a destination. The scripts we hear early in our lives and really throughout our careers can be very powerful and often result in beliefs that can have a significant impact on decisions that we make throughout our careers. Many of the beliefs that we hear from women leaders were reflected in the 12 Habits article described in the article that you read, How Women Rise. Some examples include, and this is likely the one we see most often, is that my work should speak for itself. I should just keep my head down and work hard. I shouldn't have to draw attention to what I'm contributing. The second habit that can get in the way is the thinking that getting promoted, moving forward, is all about the expertise I bring, rather than the skills around leading and managing people, influencing, gaining buy-in. Very likely your expertise is what has helped you progress. But what is most often sought for more senior positions, as you have likely seen, is the ability to lead and leverage others to make things happen. A third one is, and I always find this one to be an interesting one and very frequently seen, my job should come ahead of my career. In essence, what we hear a lot is, I'm too busy this year to focus on my development because I've got so much going on at work. When in reality, focusing on your development could bring great value to you personally as well as to your organization. Another one is it's selfish to self-promote and focus on your career. And so throughout this, I encourage you to think about and always continue to think about, why is it in others' best interest for you to talk about your strengths and accomplishments? And there's a few key reasons that I'll put out right now. One is it enables them to leverage you and the strengths that you bring. It builds their trust in you. It builds your credibility. And it also helps them. They've got, as always, a lot of priorities, very busy schedules. And so the more that you can articulate your strengths, what you've accomplished, the easier it is for them to see it, as well as communicate it further upwards. Another one is, I don't have all the capabilities needed for that role. I'm missing one or two, so therefore I'm not going to apply. And what we encourage you to do is to go in with the confidence that you do have those capabilities, that you can demonstrate them, and also the ability to learn in the role as well. So think about those scripts, and this is going to be the first moment that we'll take a pause, and think about this question: what are your beliefs about managing your career, and how have they impacted or are impacting your career decisions? So hit pause and take a few minutes to think through those two questions. Okay, let's continue now with discussing how to effectively build a brand. And we'll start by talking about, what is a brand? And having a brand is truly one of the most critical components of managing your career, knowing your value. And having a personal brand is something that we hear a lot about. And essentially what a personal brand is a widely recognized and commonly held impression of a person based on their experience, their expertise, their behavior, and their accomplishments. When your talents are understood well by others, you're much more likely to be thought of for key opportunities, new roles, perhaps new initiatives that are occurring within the organization, key issues that need to be addressed and need leaders and people with strong capabilities to be able to work through them and find resolutions to them. And as we talked about before, a strong personal brand also builds your credibility. It contributes your ability to build trust, to influence others, to sell your ideas, and really influence the change that's important to you and your organization. So that's causing me to reflect back on the Leading Change and Influencing session, And so really your brand is really a key force in terms of being able to have the influence that you want to have in the organization. Research also shows that when you effectively communicate and cultivate your personal brand, you're much more likely to attract a sponsor. And we'll talk about sponsors later, but when you have a sponsor, you're also 23% more likely than your peers to be promoted. So it really is a key element of career management. So let's take a look at some brands. We all know the power of a brand. We see it all the time, and I have some representative brands, things that we hear about a lot, see a lot, really have known for a long time. And we know that these organizations put a lot of research, hard work, and money into building these brands. So let's look at one as an example. Let's take the Apple brand. So when you think of Apple, what words come to mind? And I'll just offer some thoughts. This is a company that was founded by two highly entrepreneurial, creative people who had an idea, and over the course of time really expanded their business incredibly and really across multiple industries. So how are they most often described? And here are the words that we tend to hear: creative, visionary, customer-centric. They're seen as thinking differently, really being forward-thinking, having a community of dedicated customers or fans, as they're often referred to, who say that the product makes them feel good. And this brand, the brand they've created, has led many people to choose their products simply because it's Apple. I want an iPhone. I want an Apple product. And many, the research shows, really don't look at the difference in technology between the Apple product and others. It really is based on the brand itself. So taking this now down to the personal brand level, let's take a look at a brand that has been around for a long time, and that's Oprah Winfrey's brand. Very widely publicized, generally very, very well respected. So think about the three words that come to mind when you think about Oprah. And I'll share some of the ones that we hear about: ambitious, caring, creative, genuine, and engaging. And clearly this brand has helped Oprah build trust with many people. And many of those people, because of that trust in her, have made significant changes in their own lives as a result of that trust. So now take a few minutes to think about the three words you would like others to say about you. What's the brand you would like to convey? And hit pause and take a couple minutes to just quietly write them down, and we'll come back to them later. Welcome back. I'm going to take a moment to give you an opportunity to do a knowledge check. This is just a way I'll be doing this 3 times throughout our session, and it's really just an opportunity for you to take a look at some of the information that has been shared and just check what you learned from it. Okay. So clearly, as we think about a brand, it should go beyond buzzwords or aspirations. It should be real, a true reflection of the value that you bring. And there are 3 key steps in knowing your value and building your brand. The first one is to take the time to reflect on and articulate some of your key accomplishments and strengths. This is a critical component of managing your career, and something that we recommend doing on a regular basis, however you define that. We find that some people will take a step back on a monthly basis and take a look at what they accomplished for the month, take a look ahead for the next month. Other people prefer to do it once or twice a year. But the important thing is that reflection time is very, very critical. And when you do that, what we encourage you to do is be willing to go deep, to truly think about it and think deeply about it so you can discover what makes you unique. Reflect on your past experience. Reflect on your successes as well as the challenges that you worked through. Identify what deeply held beliefs of yours have helped make you successful. What strengths will help you continue to succeed. It's also important to take the time to build this into a story that you can tell in an authentic way, going beyond saying what your strengths are to describing experiences that gave you that strength. And also importantly, learn to weave them into conversations so that over time people can be more and more aware of the strengths that you bring. Lastly, it's important to be proactive in gaining visibility and support, leveraging your network to build support for what you want to accomplish and how your strengths can be leveraged. And we'll be talking about these things in the next few minutes. So I'm going to give you an opportunity now to reflect on 2 key accomplishments that you've had in the past few years. And please use handout number 1 for this. For example, it could be the work you did to change the marketing message. And again, this is just an example, for a product which led to increased sales. Another example could be leading a team to redesign a cross-functional process, such as the annual budgeting process, or how development plans for key talent are discussed and reviewed, and opportunities are decided upon. Whatever you choose, be sure it's something that made a difference for the organization, was something you did well, and you enjoyed doing it. So I'm going to hit pause, and I'm going to ask you to take about 10 minutes to do this, because I really want you to think it through. Okay, so now take a few minutes to ask yourself, what did I do to achieve that? And in doing this, I encourage you to keep asking yourself what else you did to do that. And ask yourself that question 2 or 3 times so you'll dig deeper and deeper. Do this for each of the 2 accomplishments. For example, you might initially say, I identified and brought together the team. I got buy-in from senior leadership to take this on and garnered the resources to do so. And I developed the plan for the team to work together. When you dig deeper, you might discover that you, in leading that effort, you resolved conflicts. You enabled innovative ideas to come forward. You influenced behavior change. So as you dig deeper, you will get to those capabilities that really helped make that successful, and the things that you personally brought to that to make it happen. So once again, please take 10 minutes, hit pause, and please take 10 minutes to do that as well. Now, what I encourage you to do is take a look at those strengths that you identified and look for the common themes across the 2 accomplishments, and identify 3 or 4 key strengths that are represented in both. And then take a look back at your 3 words. How do those words align with the strengths that came through? In other words, how do your accomplishments and strengths align with the brand that you're hoping to convey? As I mentioned earlier, what's also very important is having the ability to share your strengths and doing it in a way that is a story, where people not just hear the words, but they hear how it is that you demonstrated them and what you accomplished through them. So let's, just as an example, let's say you have the opportunity to spend 15 minutes with a new CFO or a new CMO or the new CEO so they can get to know you. Here's an example of what a leadership story might be told. I'm really happy to have the opportunity to speak with you. I'm the Executive Director of Program Management, and I've been with the company for 5 years. I really enjoy my work because I am continually challenged and stretched and able to make a contribution to the business. Just recently, I took on the goal of process improvement for drug development. I led a cross-functional team that identified simple changes that will result in faster, more economical drug development. In approaching this, I tapped into my strengths. I leveraged relationships to build on others' abilities and views, and my strategic thinking and leadership skills to encourage the team to think creatively about how things might be rather than being constrained by what is. I used critical reasoning skills to objectively assess what to continue and what to change. And as I look ahead, I would like to continue to leverage these strengths and develop in ways that will enable me to assume greater levels of responsibility. What's key to this is a couple things. One is having it be concise, and also being clear on what your contributions are so that it's memorable, what the strengths are that got you there, what you enjoy doing, and also what your aspirations are. In other words, clear, concise, so that it's memorable, so that that individual can leverage you going forward. So now we're going to take another moment for a second knowledge check. So I'll give you a few seconds to take a look at those, and then answer the questions. Now we're going to shift to taking a look at your career goals. And as I said earlier, a career is a journey. It's not a destination. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to think about your journey going forward. It could be your next steps or goals for the near term or for the long term, whatever you choose at this moment in your life and career. As a thought starter, some possible goals might include a higher level of responsibility. Oftentimes we have people who may be looking 2 or 3 levels ahead, something that they want over the course of the next several years. It may also be expanded responsibility. So taking on, let's say you have domestic responsibility now, taking on global responsibility for the function that you lead. Could also be continued growth in current role. There may be a lot of new things coming up that need to be addressed, and growth may not necessarily be dependent on changing roles. Could also be lateral moves, getting other experiences within the organization. Can also be taking a look at a different organization, learning a different industry to help expand your capabilities. Often we have people wanting to move into more of a consulting role to leverage their expertise and experience in different ways. Board positions. Very often, people who are completely satisfied where they are within their organizations feel a need to make a contribution outside of the organization and being part of a nonprofit or a for-profit board. And of course, there's a whole host of other ways to further advance your career. And this process really is intended to help you be creative and really think through what that might be. So what I'm going to ask you to do is really take a moment to think about what your career goals are. And so for this, take a look at handout 2. And just in those first few lines, hit pause, and in those first few lines, think about what a next step or what future steps look like for you. And hit pause to do that. All right, what the next step is looking objectively at what's required to achieve this goal. And this really is thinking about, depending upon what you're thinking about, what does that organization look for in a successful candidate? So it's not necessarily about how you need to grow. We'll get to that in later. But for now, it's what would they be looking for? So asking yourself or talking with others to get answers to questions like, what capabilities and experiences are important? What relationships may be necessary? I'll share with you a couple of examples. One is a man that I worked with. He was on the research side of a pharmaceutical company. And while there, he completed his MBA, really always had, in addition to being a scientist, always had a really strong interest in business and really had the goal of moving to the commercial side. So after getting his MBA, he began spending time with people that were on the commercial side, just got to know people in marketing, patient access, sales, really learned about their roles and experiences. And over time, he became involved in some initiatives, so really volunteered to be part of it, built support for him to do that in addition to his role within science, and then ultimately made the move to marketing. So became a director and then ultimately a VP of marketing within the business. So it was a very gradual move, but he really took the time to build the relationships, get to know the areas, and really develop the capabilities that were necessary. Another example is a senior leader that I worked with who, and I really referred to this earlier, she really had achieved what she wanted within the organization and was interested in joining a board. That was truly her passion. So she spent a number of months talking with people who served on boards to really get a sense of what it took to be selected for that board. She built the capabilities to serve on a board, and then ultimately, within about a year, was ultimately chosen one that she continues to serve on today. So take a few minutes and just think about what you think might be required to land the position that you're thinking about or the opportunity that for your career goal. Now, the next thing is to take a look at what strengths you bring. And you talked about your strengths earlier, you looked at your strengths earlier. What I really encourage you to do is dig deep, but then in this case, dig deep in a different way. What we often find is that women often tend to understate their capabilities. So really give yourself the gift of being really objective, not being too hard on yourself, and really looking at the capabilities that you already have. And strengths can be capabilities, but strengths can also be relationships. Value you can bring because of the network that you have, because of people you are positioned to influence, because of people who you can leverage as resources for information. So as you think about the strengths that you bring, think about it more very broadly. Strengths and capabilities as well as resources and relationships that may be helpful in that role as well. So I'll give you a few minutes to do that as well on handout 2. And the next step, and you knew we would get there, is in what ways do you need to grow? So what are and primarily think about what are the enhanced or new capabilities that you may need. For example, it may mean I really need to learn to deal with conflict. I really need to understand another aspect of this business. I really need to develop relationships more broadly across the organization. So really think about how you need to grow, and to think about them in terms of those big capabilities, not small things, not work habits necessarily to change, but those strengths that truly will contribute to your success in that role. I'll give you a few minutes to do that as well. And then, of course, the next step is to identify what actions you will take to develop those capabilities. And huge reminder of that one habit that we heard about in How Women Rise. Don't let your job get in the way of your career. So identify those steps that will get you there over the time frame that you have established, and find ways to commit the time to building those capabilities. And a way to think about actions to take, and particularly as when you think about growth, is the 70-20-10 principle, 70%, 20%, 10%. And that is that 70% of what you do to develop should be action-oriented. In other words, behaviors you change, experiences that you have, so things you do to build that capability. The 20% should be mentoring, coaching, so involving other people in helping you grow in that way. And then the 10%, reading and learning, perhaps going to a course, perhaps, reading the Harvard Business Review as an example on a regular basis. So finding really academic activities that will help you grow as well. And another important piece then, once you've defined where you want to go, how it is, what the strengths you bring, how it is you want to grow to get there, are the efforts that you make to build visibility and support. And where we will start with that is a very important piece and particularly for women, is in communicating your value. And as you'll see right at the top, I have weave your accomplishments into conversations. And we talked about this a few minutes ago. Be sure to be able to articulate them clearly and succinctly. Be sure to find the balance between I did this and we did this. Most often, women tend to use we a lot more than I. And that can be very helpful in some circumstances where you really want to be visible about giving credit to the team. However, the contributions that you made as the leader, the I in that, is also very, very critical for people to hear. So be sure that you are finding the right balance, that people are hearing what they need to hear about you, as well as what you did in terms of giving credit to the team. And continue to understand why it's important for you and others to know your accomplishments. Continue to reflect on that, because if that's something that is uncomfortable for you, which it is for many, the more comfortable you get with that it is important, the easier it will be for you to do that. And also very important is don't expect that others will notice what you've accomplished. As I mentioned earlier, many are so busy, have so many priorities on their plate that it's not easy for people to recognize exactly what you've accomplished. It's also important to have a strong leadership presence. So really focusing on how you come across visually, vocally, and verbally. And one of the ways we like to think about executive presence, executive presence really is that ability to inspire confidence in you by others. So others trust you, know you will lead them in the right direction. And your visual presence, how you communicate, how you come across to others, really makes a huge difference in that. Take the risk to step up to new opportunities to demonstrate your strengths and expand your experience. Perhaps it's an area of expertise that really isn't yours at this moment, or a part of the business that you're not that familiar with. Trust yourself to bring the strengths that you have and that you'll be able to learn and demonstrate the capabilities to contribute to that opportunity. Speak to your career aspirations. Be clear on what they are. The clearer you are, the more likely people are to be able to help you. And also, the more clear you are on your career aspirations, the less likely it is that people will be making assumptions about what you want. She doesn't want to relocate at this moment, which sometimes is the case, but sometimes it's not the case. She's too challenged by where she is now. That may not be the case, or it may be the case. So, in essence, control the narrative about what you want going forward. And also, importantly, manage your external presence. And of course, a key way to do that is through LinkedIn. So continually look at your LinkedIn profile. Make sure it's telling a good story. Make sure it's reflecting the most important opportunities that you are focused on at this moment, and within the recent time. And another important factor is leveraging your network. Now, you'll recall that this was a big topic of conversation in session 1. And let's take a moment to review why this is important, and particularly in the context of career management. So some people we often hear are very, very uncomfortable with networking. They may often say, I don't have time to do that. I'm too busy. I wish I could fit it in, but I can't. But in many cases, at the root of that is often a discomfort with managing relationships, leveraging relationships for personal career gain. And so let's take a look at what really is the value of a network. Well, most importantly, and I think at the foundation of it all, it's really about learning and exchanging ideas and information, having relationships with people who you may have some things in common with, but who may also think about things very differently. So it can often very simply just be a way to share information and thoughts. It's also an opportunity to gain visibility with people who can help, people who can advocate for you, people who can sponsor you, people who may know about new opportunities, or people who may think of you when they hear about new opportunities. It's also your network is also a great source of helping to understand and assess your qualifications for a particular role that you may think about for the future. Conversations, meeting with a senior leader about what they did to get in the role that they're in, what experiences were important. And so learning getting those kinds of insights and learning about that can be very, very valuable. It's also an opportunity to get feedback. What would your advice be to me in terms of getting into a position like this going forward? It's also an opportunity through all of that to grow your own self-confidence. You build strength in knowing what it takes to succeed, and then also more and more strength in terms of what you bring to it. And it is also, and I think this is likely most important, just a huge opportunity to develop long-lasting, mutually beneficial relationships. And we all have them, people that we really rely on, really throughout our careers to help us, and for us to help them as well. So let's take a minute and talk about sponsors. In essence, a sponsor is someone who will advocate for you when you're not in the room. So someone who knows you well. And as I mentioned earlier, this is really a critical component of career management, and also a huge opportunity in managing your network. And unlike mentorship, sponsorship from someone is earned, not requested. So someone really chooses to be your sponsor as opposed to you asking them to be your sponsor. So what are ways to attract a sponsor? First of all, form relationships with many people, because sponsorship can happen in many different and in unpredictable ways. It's important as you're doing that to raise visibility to your work. Be sure as we've said, be sure you're talking about your contributions, you're talking about your capabilities. Also, another way to attract a sponsor is to volunteer to help them in some way. I was very interested in what you were saying as an example, saying to a senior, very interested about what you were saying about your interest in really changing this technology. I've got some experience with that. I'd like to offer you my thoughts. So what are the characteristics of an effective sponsor? Number one, it's someone that has influence in the decisions based on where you're trying to go, either within your organization or outside of your organization. It's also someone who likes your work, who respects you, who knows what you've done and what you do, who also has the ability to elevate visibility to your work. So it's someone who's really willing to share that with others. They know you and your career aspirations, so they know how they can help you achieve what you want. And as was said, they'll advocate for you when you aren't in the room, and they're also very likely to defend you if something comes up when you're not in the room. So what comes to mind, for example, is one of those assumptions that can be made in those conversations. I don't think she's willing to relocate. Well, I happen to know that's not true. She is willing to relocate. So someone who knows you well and can represent you, and be sure that things are considered based on what is true and what is real. So an example of that is a woman that I knew learned from her CEO that he had learned about her work from one of his senior leaders. That leader had shared her praise of her work and her ability to lead strategy as well as manage the details, and it led to a new opportunity that the CEO got her involved in. So that's just an example of how that kind of sponsorship, it can be very informal, but it can lead to many new opportunities. So importantly, we talked about reflecting on your career. It's also important to take the time to assess your network. And here's some questions to think about. Number one, how open and diverse is my network? And so you can think about it in terms of people, so from a gender perspective, from an age perspective, from a race perspective. It's also important to think about it from the standpoint of functional area. Maybe as parts of the business can also be internal versus external people. So really coming up with an idea of what an optimal network looks like for you, what would be most beneficial to you, and then ensuring that is diverse and that it will truly help you get to where you're trying to go. The second question is, what are the benefits of my interactions with them? And this is really an important question because we said earlier that one of the big reasons that gets in the way of people networking is the time that they have to commit to it. So in assessing your network, it's also important to know what's the value that's being created in my spending time with them. Also importantly in this, as you go further and over time, is really thinking about, do I still need everyone in my network? Are there people who perhaps are more important for me to be spending time with, and some who may be less important for me to be spending time with. Tough decisions to make, but it becomes a sense of how then you manage that. Perhaps you talk with those people less frequently, or you simply change the nature of the relationship. Another key question is, how can I leverage my contacts to identify new opportunities and capitalize on them? So keeping that future orientation in mind, really being strategic about managing those relationships. Do my contacts know about my accomplishments, my capabilities, my career aspirations? So am I being clear and concise in what I want, and so that they can help me going forward? Very importantly, am I finding ways to bring value to them? Obviously, networking is a very much a give and a take, and you get value by giving value, and then clearly thinking about what actions you need to take to enhance your network. And in session 1, this model was presented by Molly, and it's a common way that we think about the network, and I'll just remind you of it. There's the operational network, so the network that you need to really accomplish the business goals that are in front of you right now. There's the professional network, so that's a network that's related very much to your area of expertise. If you're in law, so then it's likely other attorneys, other legal professionals, financial organizations, and then there's the strategic network. And the strategic network, this is where the career network really fits in, as well as the network to expand your thinking about business opportunities going forward. New ways. New pathways for the organization, really innovative thinking about the way to do things. So as you think about the people in your network, be sure you've got a mix really across those areas. And now we're going to take a minute to do our third knowledge check. So now let's we've talked about a lot of different areas, and what I wanted to do was just summarize it in a few key ways to ensure career growth. One is, as we've said many times, is to clearly communicate your strengths, your accomplishments, and the value you bring. Secondly, ask for what you want. Step up to new and challenging assignments. Be willing to take that risk. Speak clearly to your career accomplishments. Really what you're doing when you do that is you're helping people help you. As we just talked about, take the time to assess, diversify, and nourish your network. Leverage your relationships in the best way possible. And also, very importantly, strike the right balance between managing your job and managing your career. As you may see, that truly is one of the most important habits to break in that How Women Rise article. So I encourage you to take a few minutes to think about your takeaways from this session. What has been most meaningful for you, and what actions will you take as a result? So take a few minutes to hit pause now and do that, or certainly right after the session. And then, as you know, you have one more cohort call. And so for this call, please be prepared to discuss the impact of the learnings you had from this session. There will likely be a group discussion about everyone's individual takeaways. And then also your goal and your action plan. So essentially, handout number 2. And then you should expect that over the course of that conversation, you'll be getting advice from others as well as giving advice to your other cohort members. And as I said in the very beginning, and I just want to reinforce it, is taking the time to do this is so critically important. At the level that you are at now, you truly are the CEO of your career. You're the one who knows best what you're capable of, what you enjoy, and what you want going forward. So it really is critical for you to take charge of going where you want to go. And a few final reminders. First of all, register for graduation, and also we encourage you to bring a sponsor with you to that event. Stay in touch with your cohort. You've gotten to know them very well. They can be a huge, huge support network, particularly because they're people who most likely are outside of your organization or outside of the role that you play, and can just be a huge source of support, and really based on how well they've gotten to know you and the relationships that you've built. And stay in touch with the larger ELIW class. You never know when they may be helpful to you for one reason or another. Add graduation from this program to your LinkedIn profile. And then very, very importantly, be a leader in your organization and support other women in their development, and consider recommending them or a few people for this program, so they can get the benefit of the learnings that you have gotten as well. And with that, I'd like to congratulate you on completing the ELIW program. I hope it's been a wonderful experience for you, and one that you will draw on for many years to come. Thank you so much for listening today, and I wish you great success.